So, Ankush, seeing that you have extensively been a part of all of these different projects and studies involving stress and depression, and all of the science outreach programs like Project TensorFlow and R-Psych, what do you think is the current scenario of awareness among the people regarding neuropsychiatric disorders? And what future plans do you have to take so that in your research, so that you can engage the public in more healthy discussions?
Right. So, at least from what I know, mental health isn't something, it's still shunned upon by a majority of the Indian population, at least. And I know this because I come from a town that's kind of away from the metro cities, and I can literally observe people. When they say that they would not like to go to a psychiatrist because the other people might think that they're mad or something like that. And I see this on a daily basis, and I go there and confront them. No, you should go there. This is why you should go there, and all of that. And I know it's tough for tough for people to get through that barrier soon, because one, they have been exposed to this kind of a mindset for a long time, and that is exactly where my science outreach comes in. To whoever that has asked me what I am doing right now, explaining what I am doing right now, which is research on depression, has been kind of a tough job. But then once it's done, they at least know what I am doing and how this might be helpful, and how this might be a way of getting out of such a mental state. For starters, people don't know that this is a way.
That's so sad.
Yeah, exactly. And even when perhaps people might be depressed, they don't even go for the diagnosis to go to the doctor and see if they are clinically depressed. Even if they get medications, the problem is a lot of antidepressants have a lot of side effects. And sometimes these side effects are very counterintuitive. You can find a side effect saying you might get depressed if you take this antidepressant. Then why would you take this antidepressant, right?
Yeah.
And so that in that domain, you need to understand that antidepressants kind of make your brain plastic in a way. So if you are still exposed to those stressors that you were exposed earlier, it can actually bring more depression. But if you are exposed to a better environment with less stressors and you're taking antidepressants, they are better at their work.
Correct.
So you just see those side effects on the back of the antidepressants boxes, but then you don't know the story behind it, right? That's where science outreach comes in, to tell you what exactly it does and how exactly it does that, so that you can take an informed decision on taking those antidepressants or taking other medications or taking other treatments.
That's an excellent point. I guess most people usually are afraid of taking antidepressants or even looking at things because of the side effects that are involved. Many of the people I know have told me the same thing, and I guess that is where your research is very, very important. And
plus, I just want to add in. Sorry for interrupting, but I just want to add in. For example, some antidepressants have side effects such as you might gain weight. Now, that's true for a lot of antidepressants, but you would not gain weight if you try other therapies such as the TMS.
Correct.
Or some other treatment. So you can choose antidepressants based on what exactly you need. So your treatment should be catered to you. And people don't know that much. Plus, this is not something that you get everywhere. You don't get TMS in these town hospitals around us. You probably would get those in some metropolitans, in some research institutes somewhere, but not here. So that's another problem. And if people know about the problem, they probably would take steps to solve it. So that's another goal with the outreach.
Yeah, that's I guess that's something that has to go out there so that people learn more about it, know more about it, and bring about a change in any small way that they can. So that's
I mean, the
really
more the social stigma is removed from the topic of depression, the better steps would be taken in order to, provide better healthcare facilities for people.
Agreed.
Indeed,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, there has also been a study, quite an old study, where they showed how you have prejudices against groups or things that you don't know much about. And that's exactly the case with depression. You don't, the majority of the population doesn't know what it is, how it can be treated, and all of that. And so they have a prejudice that, okay, this is bad, you should not just tackle it, you should just throw it away in a dark corner and not think about it again. But that's not how it works.
Fear of the unknown. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think just talking to a friend or going and seeing a person, that's like one of the ways to do it. But a lot of people who might be going through it but may not be aware of it, might not even know that there are so many alternatives around to help you out of the situation. And creating awareness is not just about making that person realize that that person is going through something and needs help, but it's also about helping that person out. And be it talking to a friend or be it going and talking to a doctor, two different things but same outcome.
Yeah, and it's not just people who don't have depression that don't understand what it is. Even people with depression might not know how it's happening, and it's something that hampers them in a way. I'll give an example. I know a friend's mom who has clinically diagnosed depression. She has been taking antidepressants for around 40 years.
Okay.
Same it has been. I mean, the antidepressants have been changing. I mean, the names have been changing, but then it's the antidepressants. And if they work fully, that shouldn't be a problem for 40 years, right? So it could be a case where she could have tried other medications, other treatments, but she didn't know that there existed other options.
Yeah.
So that's also another problem. Antidepressants are really costly. And if you take into account the majority of the people, it's hard for them to afford it.
Very
so
Plus,
that's also a problem.
you can have a combination of treatments involved with antidepressants and, like you said, TMS or other techniques, and even involving a more happier environment around you. All of that is important, and I think people don't give that much importance. If it's something like cancer or these huge diseases that we know about, I'm not putting them down in any way, but even this is big enough because we need to take care of the person in the same way. Just because you can't see it happening or outside it physically doesn't mean that it's not causing damage.
Yeah, and whenever I make the slides for my presentations or in the introduction of my manuscripts, I write this one line which is, according to WHO, around 264 million people have suffered or are suffering through depression. And this was before the pandemic started. So it's a lot higher than that right now. And even a little bit of information can probably help a lot of people. So that's why I do what I do.
We're glad that you do what you do for that.
Plus, I think empathy is very important for research because,
For sure.
at least in my case, depression has different kind of symptoms. And these are very varied symptoms. This can be from something like psychomotor deficiencies, where you don't feel like moving. You might be fatigued. You feel that you are drained. You don't want to do anything. You might be demotivated. So these are like very different spectrums. There might be eating disorders. For example, you might eat a lot or you might not eat a lot. And again, there might be sleeping problems where you either sleep a lot or you have insomnia, where you don't sleep. So, having empathy kind of helps you realize their problems, and then you can always go to the lab and look after what exactly the problem would be from a cellular and molecular level or something. But then the first point would be noticing what might the problem be for these patients.
Very true. Because in the end, we do research to help people, to help solve world problems. Even though that might not happen in our lifetime, but what we do, like how Parthamitra had said, will somehow help someday to find a solution to that. So that's really true. So Ankush, I would want to ask you, what, after having been a part of so many initiatives and projects, what would you choose for your PhD or your future in research?
Well, so I currently I got offered a research assistant position in a lab in Chile. So I am looking forward to going there. Unfortunately, I don't have funds to travel there, but then I'm hoping to do a fundraiser and kind of get through it. The travel grants, mostly of what I know, are kind of stopped because of COVID. So nothing I can do about that, but then maybe a fundraiser would help me out. That's one thing. And about PhDs, well, it depends on the lab that I go to, and I have enough ideas in my head to connect with different researchers on their spectrum. So for example, depression can be thought of from a lot of different angles. You can think of that from the microbiome point of view. So the microbes in your gut can affect the mood that you're having right now. That's one. Other than that, you can also look at normal how antidepressants work from receptors point of view, how TRKB receptors bind to antidepressants, and BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It kind of helps increase synaptic plasticity. So from that point of view, you can also look at it from, say, fMRI, on looking at different circuits, how, say, the default mode network is being mediated on depression. So what happens is, when you have chronic depression, certain circuits in your brain might become stronger. And with treatments like TMS, ECT, all of those, what it does, it tries to make those circuits weaker and make other circuits stronger that kind of take you out of depression. So that's another way. So there are multiple perspectives, and you could really, with just one problem, you could do a lot of different projects. So it really depends on the lab that I get into. Right now, my research is on inflammation and depression. So you might have noticed, when you are down with fever or flu, you probably feel sad, you feel fatigued, you feel like not moving much, and you probably feel like not sleeping or sleeping a lot. Also, you don't like your food as much as you would normally have liked. Now think about it. All of these are symptoms that I told you were symptoms of depression. And what I'm looking at is how this cell signaling pathway called NF-kappa B is implicated in this. So if you have fever, how the immune system might get activated, and through certain pathways, it probably causes you to be depressed.
Wow.
So
okay, that's really interesting.
That's what I'm doing.
That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
it is.
And I guess that might
And
work,
something to think about.
yeah, I guess it also works on the if suppose you have a stomach infection, so the microbiomes in your gut that is causing a problem there will cause problems in your mood and your behavior. So maybe even that would be like pseudo depressive symptoms.
Have you ever seen when you take an antidepressant? When you take an antibiotic, you feel weak and you don't feel like getting up. For some time, you take a lot more rest than normally you would do.
Yeah.
That probably has to do something with the microbiome.
Exactly.
It kills the bacteria in your gut, and that really does something. So there definitely can be. I don't know for sure, but then there definitely is something.
Yeah, maybe it's some sort of a depression that the brain induces on itself for you to feel better. You never know.
Well, might be. or probably you are interfering with the ones that are making you feel good, and so it's kind of a punishment for you because you're interfering with my bacteria.
Yeah.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah.
So I'd also like to mention, like you brought up the topic of science outreach. We at Pradyum Civilian are trying to set a brain awareness week in September, and so this would be an event where we reach out to people who are interested in neuroscience and probably did not get much exposure yet. So high school kids or even older than that who just want to get a flavor of neuroscience, what it is, and just start from the very basics. So we are planning on having these events towards like the last couple of weeks of September. So would love to see a lot of kids interact and get to know about neuroscience, the kind of neuroscience fever I had when I was younger. But I personally couldn't find people who I could talk with or I could discuss these ideas. Once we had Project Instagram, we could do that, but then that was very late. So that kids who are interested in learning about the brain might get a community to do so, friends to do so. That's what we are planning.
That's amazing.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So with that, I would heartily like to thank Ankush for joining us today for this episode of the Science Jam, and definitely we have learned a lot of things from you regarding depression, stress related disorders, and also about how we need to make people aware about these disorders in order to better the healthcare facilities that are being provided to people currently. So thanks a lot again, and all the best for your future endeavors. And congratulations on getting into the lab of your choice in Chile.
Thank you. It was great being here.
Yes, it was great hosting you, and we hope to see you and a lot more people around at Brain Awareness Week. We would love to attend as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.